Welcome to Tammy and Friends. Today, I cannot wait to introduce you to a really great guy. His name is Aaron Conrad, and he has a podcast titled Unscripted. I've been on it. I enjoyed it. You're going to enjoy all of the different ones that he has, all the conversations he's had, because he's easy to listen to. And what he talks about is so relevant in the world we live in today. Aaron is smart. He's humorous. He has good insight. I met him at Speak Up this year in Michigan. And when I read this about him, I thought, you know what? That's true. It has been said that he's a nice guy. And he is proof that nice guys don't have to finish last. I totally agree with this. And if you want to find him, you can find him at aaronconrad.com. We're going to go over all of that at the end also. But welcome, Aaron.
Whoa, my goodness. It's such an honor to be here. I've been so excited. I'm so honored. I didn't even realize when we had the opportunity to share the same stage. The more I've learned about you and listened to you and seen what you do for the kingdom and oh gosh, and our friendship and you having you on my podcast, it has been awesome. So I'm so honored to be here. Thank you so much for the invite.
Well, thank you. And I've been looking forward to the conversation. I want to talk about today something that, unless people have been living under a rock for the past few years, they've probably heard the word cancel culture. It was first used in 2016 from everything that I can find. And it really describes this popular practice of publicly rejecting, silencing, withdrawing support, walking away, ignoring, and sometimes it's people, sometimes it's groups. But if you disagree with them, you just walk away from them. In other words, if in doubt, cancel it out.
Oh, right.
What do you think about that, Aaron?
No, I think it's so true. And obviously we're in such a hot political time and season. And I think it's not going to get better. It's going to continue to just continue to get harder and harder for everyone. So I think, if something doesn't align with our political views, then it's very quick to cancel. And then what we all do, depending on whichever side you're on, then we rally around what was canceled, depending on which side we're on. And that could be true in anything, but it's really true in politics right now. And so companies, I wouldn't want to be a social media person on a company right now, because if you make the wrong tweet, the wrong social media post, the whole company could lose billions, right? And it's a very, very tough time for, I'm sure, CEOs and the decision makers for companies, because you got to be so careful. We're all very, very sensitive now.
Sensitive. That's a good word. It does seem like that everybody's very sensitive and everybody seems to have a chip on their shoulder and triggers. That's kind of something that has evolved also, the word trigger. And if somebody gets triggered, then they have the right to have this huge emotional response. What happened, Aaron, it's the way I was raised. It's the way I was always taught, to where we can disagree, but we don't have to be disagreeable. What happened to that?
The keyboard.
You are so right.
The keyboard, the evolution of social media, the evolution of access to be able to not be in your face, because in our time, and when we were growing up, we were talking face to face. And so if I was going to disagree with you, I was going to also have to deal with the consequences of my disagreement or have an argument to back it up. Now we can just shoot off a tweet, shoot off a Facebook comment. It's way easier behind the keyboard when I don't have to see or look you in the face. And especially as we grow our followers and friends, we don't really even know one another. To be honest, a lot of our friends or followers, we don't know one another at a heart-to-heart level like we used to. It's a lot more difficult now, or it's a lot more difficult then. It's much easier now for me to just fire off a comment on your Facebook page and walk away and not think two things about it, but it could ruin your world. It could ruin your day.
You're exactly right. When you say it could ruin your day, Yes, it can do that, but it can also ruin people's I mean, it can ruin the way they live.
Right.
I was recently reading an article on a woman that got canceled on social media. People just began to just bombard her and bombard her, and she ended up taking her own life over it.
Yeah. That's not,
So
yeah.
no, so cancel culture, it's a dangerous thing. And I
Mhm.
know, Aaron, you're a big guy in sports. You
Mhm.
love sports. As a matter of
Mhm.
fact, you and my husband are alike on that. He loves sports. How has cancel culture kind of weaseled its way into that arena as well?
Well, I've worked in the amateur sports world for a few organizations. Uh, I have three kids that have played in travel sports, which is such a big thing now. It's a honestly, it's a huge industry. It's a money making industry, which I hate that I've even been a part of the money making side of that industry. But what I've seen is, um, I think it's very easy when my son played baseball. So let's just use baseball. If he didn't start, if he wasn't the four hitter on the team, if that coach didn't think he was the best player that I think he is, then I'm just going to take my son. We're going to go start another team, and I'm going to cancel that team, and I'm going to go start another team. And so the explosion of travel sports that you've seen for kids is they're constantly being moved from team to team to team, and there's more and more teams because we keep moving that kid until I can make him the player that I think he is, even though that my child might not be. And so when we were raising our kids, we really tried to be honest, not only with them, but with ourselves, and we had to have some tough conversations with them. I remember crying, sitting with my daughter and saying, hey, she was in gymnastics. She was probably about 10 or 11 years old. She's spending 4 days a week in a gym for 4 hours each day in the summer. And I said, like, there's no runway here. She was good, but not great. She wasn't going to the Olympics. And I'm like, you're 10 or 11 years old. You should be playing with other girls. You should be having sleepovers. You should be having fun, you know? Now, if she would have shown signs of being, but there are parents that they'll blow right past that. Well, there's no runway, and they'll just keep pushing that child and then cancel and move them to something else and something else and something else. And that's what I've seen, and it breaks my heart. It breaks my heart. And I don't mean we got it right. There was many nights where I sat on my kid's bed and said, you know what, I got this one wrong. I'm sorry we moved you to that team. I'm sorry we made that decision. And I think that's important too. But yeah, I think it's really important that we're honest with not only our children, but ourselves. But it's such a fine line because you want to push them. You want to
Yes,
push them to be the best that God created them to be, and but not be obsessive about it.
right. I agree with that. And it seems like that we saw that movement begin several years ago. But what it has evolved into is if we don't agree with you, then we're just going to walk away and ignore you.
Right.
We have the power to ignore you.
Yeah.
And so, therefore, what it seems like to me is people who think differently, people who used to be willing to speak up, they just quietly quit. Have you seen this?
100%. And so the other thing I would say, quietly quit, yes, but you said ignore. They can also destroy you.
Yes.
So in the sports thing, okay, my kid wasn't what I thought he was going to be on that team. I'm going to go start my own team, and then I'm going to knock that other team because I have social media now. I'm going to say nothing but bad things about the team that he was on, and now that hurts that team's reputation. And honestly, you know who it really hurts is you. Like if I'm out there just saying all these bad things about some other organization, ultimately, I think a lot of people, especially ones that have been through it, look at that and say, you know what, that's a reflection of you, not them. You know what I'm saying? But I think yes, because we have the opportunity to really do a lot of damage again behind the keyboard.
Right. And you're right about the keyboard. See, I didn't even think about taking a correction, but you're exactly right. And when I grew up, my mama and my grandmama used to always say, if you don't have anything nice to say,
Don't say nothing at all.
that's right.
That's right.
And so, our age group can fill that in because it used to be called bullying, and the backlash to bullying was brutal.
Mm-hmm.
And when I look at the consequences of the cancel culture, It just a lot of times it really seems like it's very closely kin to what bullying is. Do you see
Mhm.
that as well?
For sure. Yeah. And I think it's so easy because, and I hate to keep saying it, but because you can just shoot off something that really took you 2 minutes, you didn't think it through, but where it landed and the heart of the person it landed in, you and I've talked about being empaths. Boy, when I get a comment on social media, that that hurts me. That stings me. And not everyone's an empath, you know? But so I absolutely agree with that. I think it hurts the person on the other end, and it's not necessary. Is it
Right.
kind? Is it wise? Is it necessary?
I like that. Can any good come from it, is
Right.
what I like to say also. But, we've talked about sports and we've talked about online. But one of the things that we haven't brought up is I see people canceling friends and family.
Mm,
And that's the part as a woman who speaks every weekend somewhere and I will have people come up to me a lot and they will say that they used to be great friends with this person and then because they had a disagreement they just canceled them.
mm,
Or I used to, you know what, my family doesn't get together anymore because we had a disagreement that I didn't even know we disagreed about and now we've just been canceled. So it's bled down into not just social media, it's bled down into families and friends. It's bled down into relationships.
mm,
And when I look at that, I'm going to take it from a Christian standpoint right here. When I look at this, the enemy is the great divider.
mm, mhm,
He's never about unity or community. He's always about tearing things apart. In James it tells us if you need wisdom, pray for it.
mm.
Let me tell you, in this world today, I'm praying a lot for wisdom.
Sure. Yeah.
Do you see this kind of thing as far as where you're at? I'm Texas. You're not even remotely
I have
right.
family in Houston. I have family in Houston.
That's right. That's right.
There you go.
Are you seeing a lot of this kind of thing with family and friends and relationships? And where do you think it's coming from, Aaron? Do you think the same way?
Oh, I do. I think exactly what you just said. It's the enemy, it's where can we really do the most damage? It starts in the home. It starts in our relationships. It starts in our families. If I want to damage society, I'll do that through the home. If I'm the enemy, I'm going to go directly to every home and I'm going to start there. I'm going to plant seeds of frustration, bitterness, disagreements. I'm going to plant those seeds, sit back and watch it just start to evolve. It's a slow war, so to speak. It's not a
Mhm.
quick hit.
Mhm.
It's a very slow process, but over time it will ruin everything. And I think that's probably what we're seeing. Um, it is very easy to just walk away now, and think that I'll take it back to social media one more time because I have all these followers. I don't need you. But those followers aren't your friends. I mean, yes, and I don't mean any disrespect to any
Right. Right.
follower that you or I have in our platforms. They're wonderful people. But at the end of the day, are they our friend? Are you going to call, let's say you have 5,000 followers on any social media platform. When everything goes really bad at 2 a.m. one morning, are you calling? How many of those 5,000 are you really going to pick up the phone and call?
Right.
And again, that's no disrespect,
Right. Right.
but boy, family, that's who you should be calling. If you got them and you've got great relationship, and not everybody does. And I
That-
absolutely want to be
That's exactly right.
respectful of that. If you don't have that relationship, that is okay. But
Yes.
don't be really quick to cancel a, a brotherhood, a
Yes.
sister, a
Yes.
father, a mom, whatever it might be. If it wasn't, was it be over politics or, what I'm saying? We
Yes.
can agree to disagree. I have people in my own family that we're not on the same sides of the aisle. We're on different sides. And we
Right.
can even talk about it. And that's the most healthy thing that I would love to see us get back to, is to have a healthy conversation. And at the end of it, hug it out and walk away. You know,
Right.
we
When the smoke clears, we're still here.
that's
Right.
right, right. We can't
Right.
cancel things when they get hard. I think that is so
Elaborate on
critical.
that. That's good.
Yeah.
Elaborate on that, please.
No, I just think that's from everything we've talked about, from sports to, life to politics. We can't just cancel something when it gets hard. That's not who we are as people. What makes us great as people is when we made it through the hard, when we
Yes.
made it through the mess and the
Yes.
mud, we come
Yes.
out the other side better. But cancel culture, I think when we quit, when it gets hard and we cancel something, we didn't learn anything. It's like a football game where you get a sticker on your helmet. I'm a big Carolina fan, as you said. Over the weekend, I don't know if you saw it, they got beat 70-50. This was a football game. And the
Hmm.
worst part is they paid the other team $500,000 to come beat them in their own building, in their own stadium. And they lost 70-50. And somebody said, who should get a sticker this week on their helmet? I was like, nobody. You give
Oh, nobody.
seriously, you got beat 70-50 in your
Oh,
own house, and you paid the other team to come beat you. Nobody gets a sticker this week. I'm sorry. Like, there's not a person on that team that should get a sticker. That's a culture thing. Like, y'all got to look in the mirror here for a minute. Just because it got hard, no, let's fight through that. Let's be better next week when we come out and play whoever they play. That's the same applies to us. What can I learn from it? How can I be better? How can I not be offended? And how can I not cancel this? Let's fight through this. Let's get down in the dirt and talk this out and hug it out at the end and not
yes.
cancel it.
I love that. Don't quit because it gets hard.
Right.
Don't quit because it gets hard.
Yep.
Because what you see time and time again, when times get hard, and it may be years later, but usually it's your family sometimes that's still going to open the door.
Mm-hmm.
It's your family, even though if you've been gone a long time, it's your family often who's going to say, come on back. Come
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
Yes. And if we take this to God's word, and you can tell this whole Bible is worn out. And there's a reason for that worn out Bible,
I
Aaron.
love it. I love it.
I've had to use it a whole lot.
Mm-hmm.
But when I think about we said this started in 2016, but if you think about it, if you go back in Mark, where it talked about the woman who had this problem for many, 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 many years,
Mm-hmm.
and all she wanted to do was touch
The hem of the
Jesus'
garment.
garment.
Mm-hmm.
She had been canceled
Mm-hmm.
by society.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody wanted her around.
Mm-hmm.
She was isolated. She was ignored. But if she could just touch his garment, and when she did, he didn't turn around and banish her. He didn't
Mm-hmm.
turn around and ignore her because she was canceled by culture.
Mm-hmm.
What he did was heal her,
Mm-hmm. He loved her.
which is what she knew, that if she ran to Jesus,
Mm-hmm.
that's what would happen. So in this world that we live in today, can we move past cancel culture to meaningful conversations? And a lot of times that takes a meaningful conversation with the Messiah,
Mm-hmm.
um, because he knows the messes that we can get ourselves into.
Mm-hmm.
And he also knows that when we begin to overthink, oh, we can throw ourselves into a mud pit real quick.
Mm-hmm.
And when we run to the one, instead of to social media, instead of to the complainers, the gripers, the moaners, the groaners, we will have the answer.
Mm-hmm.
When we think about the Lord, Christian culture is supposed to believe that no one is unredeemable,
Mm-hmm.
that repentance and change are always possible and forgiveness is always available.
Mm-hmm.
So can we do that in the world we live in today, where cancel culture is so prevalent?
Imagine, oh, I love it. I love it. And I agree with you. It is hard though, because I think it goes back to what we said. The enemy is looking for someone to kill, steal and destroy. Like he's literally looking for someone to destroy. And so when somebody stepped on my Air Jordans, speaking of hem of the garment, hey, if somebody marked my Jordans, I'm not happy. I'm not happy. Like, are
Why?
you kidding me? Like
Yes,
Jesus was in this huge crowd. She touched the hem of his garment. You know what? Let me be more like her. Let me want so desperately to just touch the hem of his robe as he walked by. And then let me trust that he'll understand. Because he knew right away, I believe he said something like, who did that? You know
yes,
what I mean? Who
yes,
touched me here? And he knew, and and boy, give me the faith of her. Give me her faith, give me her
yes.
understanding, and then give me his grace. He was in
Amen.
a huge crowd. Give me her faith. Let me pursue so deeply to just want to touch the hem of his garment.
Yes,
Just give me a little bit of Jesus. I don't need it all. I just need to just touch the hem of his robe, and then give me his grace when somebody marks up your Jordans.
that's right. That's
Like
right.
because
That's right.
he
He
didn't get
didn't turn
mad.
around wanting to fight.
He didn't say you creased my J's. He said, who did that? And then, he absolutely showed her grace and healing. And
Yes,
so it's such a beautiful picture. And we didn't even talk about it beforehand, but it's such a beautiful picture of both sides of this equation.
yes,
In this cancel culture, let me not focus on all that stuff. Let me want so desperately to be near, if nothing else, just near the foot of our Savior.
that's right.
And then when somebody does something that you were not expecting, let me just say, who did that? And then show incredible grace.
Yes, I love that. And as we wrap this up, I just want all of you to know, Aaron and I are kind of rolling around this idea
Mm-hmm.
about doing a podcast together that's always going to end with this question.
Mm-hmm.
What would you tell your younger self?
Right.
You know, it's according to what age group you ask, whether we are young or not anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But there are days when we don't feel young, and there are days when we still feel like we can do everything we used to do.
Yeah.
But when it comes to this, if I was to ask myself, Tammy, what would you tell your younger self about cancel culture?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I would just kind of like to say, let's learn to disagree without being disagreeable.
Yeah.
Let's extend grace. Hold on to love
Mm-hmm.
and realize that people aren't disposable. That's the biggest thing. And whether it's social media or whether it's face to face or whether it's a job or whatever it is, let's listen to each other.
Yeah.
Listening is a big deal. It's a big deal. Aaron, what would you tell your younger self?
In terms of cancel culture,
Yes.
I think I'd say what I said earlier. Don't cancel when it gets hard.
Yes.
Because I think it would translate not only in my life, school was hard. We've talked about this on the interview that we did together.
Mm-hmm.
School was hard for me. It's still learning is still very hard for me. I'm ADHD as can be. A day is very difficult for me just to get through because I'm ADHD is what. But so
But it's a
don't
blessing also. We love all that extra energy.
I do. It's so good. But don't quit when it gets hard. Fight through it because your victory's on the other side of it. That would be one thing I would tell my younger self. And also give people the grace when they're doing the same. We don't what's the quote say, you never know the battle someone else is fighting. But also I think I would just say, your faith is going to be hard. So don't quit when it gets hard because there's joy in the healing of those moments. And that's that grace and truth that we so much love about what, it's not a crutch. It's a wonderful, worn out Bible life.
That's right.
And so don't cancel that Bible because the binding on that Bible that you showed a minute ago, it could be crisp if you canceled it, but you
That's right.
didn't. And you get in that Bible and it's probably taped together and it's worn
It
and
is.
weathered and probably marked up and there's probably teardrops in there somewhere because this journey's not easy. So don't cancel the Bible. Don't cancel your faith. Stick with it because there's so much joy and beauty on the other side. That's what I tell my younger self.
Absolutely. You know what? I always enjoy any conversation that I have with you. Always. You
Same.
are so you are so easy to talk to. So I just want to, I want these people to get to know you better. So how can they connect with you, Aaron, after they've listened to this podcast?
Probably the best place is my website, aaronconrad.com. You mentioned earlier, it's AARON. It's just like the video, the viral AARON, conrad.com. Go to the website. There's a pop-up that I'm sorry for that, but it keeps people connected to a newsletter that I can send out. But yeah, everything's pretty much there. My podcast is there. I'm back to writing again, which I absolutely love. It's such a great thing. I don't know if blogs are cool anymore, but I'm still
Yeah,
going to write because I don't
I
know.
agree. I agree. Well, you know what? I have thoroughly enjoyed being with you today.
Always.
Every single time that I
Thanks.
have a conversation with you, it's always I leave thinking great thoughts. I wore this shirt today that says, "Oh, happy day," because it's always a happy day whenever I get to hear the way that you think
Mm.
and how God uses you in any subject. God uses you in a great way. Definitely a nice guy. Thank you so much, Aaron, for being with us today.
Love you, friend. I'll talk to you soon.
Bye.